This video is sponsored by Unity. Today we take a look at the Game Dev Tower. This is a simplified vision of the steps me and my brother went through to create and finish Olobolo, our third Steam game. First of all, the idea phase. Every creation starts with a spark. From a giant masterpiece to a tiny gem. This idea can come from a random conversation, an interesting life experience, or in our case, some brainstorming on paper. Almost every idea we've ended up bringing to life came when we weren't forcing the process. Beating yourself up, trying to squeeze an incredible idea from an exhausted mind doesn't work that well for us. Instead, if you put yourself in a creative environment and have some patience, then ideas will naturally appear, and then all you need to do is write them down. Here we have some early drawings and notes for what would become the world of Olobolo. At its simplest, this is a game blending football and magic. Each player would control a character and need to defend a goal. He would also be able to blast fireballs, summon creatures, and dodge vicious hazards populating the arenas. Phase 2, Prototyping. As many of you know, we use the Unity game engine and code in C#. These are extremely powerful, elegant tools which enable us to create pretty much anything we can imagine, given we have the technical skill and discipline to see it through. Prototyping is when we take the ideas sketched on paper and just turn it into something playable. It's by no means a beautiful finished game, quite the contrary, it will be crude and small. The most important thing here is to be quick. We're testing a concept with no real clue whether or not it will be fun or interesting. We don't want to spend weeks or months. Prototyping is all about quick and messy experimentation. We prototyped Olobolo pretty quickly. At first you would toss balls around by slamming into them. It was mostly physics-based and felt quite wobbly and inaccurate. So then we tried this. Balls can be picked up and shot like projectiles. This felt a lot more skill-based, satisfying, and under the player's control. Since we're a team of 2, I could begin making some artwork, just to get a vague feel for how the game might end up looking, while Liam did a lot of the programming. We recommend you focus on gameplay and design before tackling visuals. This way you haven't wasted too much effort if the experimentation doesn't yield good results. Phase 3, Discovery. This goes hand in hand with prototyping, but almost every game dev phase, from crafting visuals to programming enemy behaviors, has an element of discovery. This is a fascinating part of the creative process. For example, a bug might turn into a new mechanic or interaction, or a small side character has such a cool design you turn him into the final boss. For Olobolo, we began with something very toy-like, a character tossing a ball around. There was no concrete game. We discovered the mechanics bit by bit through trial and error, playtesting, and experiments. There will always be discovery during game development. We've not finished a single project where we had the entire vision mapped out from A to Z. Things will always change, and awesome ideas on paper might turn out crappy on screen. Mark Brown made an excellent Game Maker's Toolkit episode where he talks about discovery and how games somewhat design themselves. It's about following the fun and failing fast, sometimes ignoring plans and instead feeling what's right. Happy accidents and unexpected development hurdles can all lead to drastic shifts from the initial path. This is really fun. It's important that you just get started on something, even if the idea is extremely basic like ours was. You never know what weird ideas, bugs, mechanics, and interactions you'll discover by simply building that and playtesting. Phase 4, Grinding. These phases don't necessarily happen in the exact order that I mentioned in this video. Sometimes you'll alternate grinding and discovery. And playtesting, which I talk more about in just a bit, is absolutely key to creating a successful prototype, and so is present from the very beginning. Grinding, although sometimes tedious and a bit boring, is necessary, especially when creating a larger world. After the initial creative magic of figuring out the mechanics, art style, powers, and enemies, we went through the long, back-breaking grind, just creating more content. Grinding in game dev can be long and routine, but also very rewarding and interesting, just seeing how far one can push a certain mechanic and stretching your creative muscles by designing dozens of levels. It does involve a lot of copy and pasting at times, which is why I think it's important to alternate this sort of work with a bit of fun prototyping and discovery, so as not to burn out and to keep the creative juices flowing. Game jams also offer neat opportunities to get out of the routine, so you return fresh. No job is perfect, so sometimes you just need to put in the work uncomplainingly and patiently. Phase 5, feedback. Playtesting is present from the very beginning, a crucial layer of the game dev tower. It helps spot bugs, find ideas, and good feedback from playtesting can just shed light on your game's flaws, or quite the contrary, show you what players enjoy most about the experience so you can then expand on that. We've made a couple devlog episodes documenting the creation of Olobolo, which received a number of interesting comments. This was very useful feedback, helping us pinpoint what the community liked, disliked, or didn't understand. In the early days of Olobolo, players found it hard to differentiate their player character with hazards and enemies, so we completely redesigned the players. The backgrounds were too vibrant, so we added a black overlay so gameplay elements popped out. There was too much screen wobble, so that was toned down, and perhaps the biggest request from the community was a single player mode, which we got cracking on and turned out to be really fun. So although it's tempting to keep the project a secret from fear of negative feedback, we've really come to realize that it's important to share your work early and often, so it has to get the most feedback possible. It's really after great playtesting sessions that we were able to make the biggest improvements to our project. Playtesting Olobolo was at times quite challenging because it's a local multiplayer game that requires between 1 and 4 players. Whenever we invited some friends over, we tried to get a little Olobolo playtesting session in, recording the screen and their reactions to reference later, and listening closely to their feedback and suggestions. We noticed it's far easier for people to have fun and play longer when doing so with friends or family. Local multiplayer games really just shine bright in these moments, and I'll definitely want to create more in the future just for the sake of bringing people together and having a good laugh. Phase 6. Polishing. This usually takes place around the end of development. It focuses on the little details that can make a big difference. It's small things that players might not even notice, but would be alarmed or annoyed if absent. It's a pause menu, scene transitions, little sound effects, and juicy player feedback. Screen shake when you score a goal, shiny particles, trail effects, and responsive UI. Polishing is trying to fix all the tiny bugs and add delightful game juice that makes pressing a button feel great. I like to add some polish quite early, because it's a lot more motivating when playtesting if the game doesn't feel like a limp cabbage. It's important to not overindulge in polishing and details from the very beginning though, since it can be quite a time sink. But a little can help, especially if it's a prototype you want others to test and give you feedback on. Even if your prototype is filled with ingenious mechanics and ideas, they might not give it a serious chance if it's riddled with bugs and looks completely lifeless. Phase 7. Marketing. Another fundamental layer that can and should take place very early on in development. We're far from marketing masters. Our sole effort at selling our games are these YouTube videos, which gets us a couple thousand wishlists at most. In the future, reaching out to publishers, press, and Twitch streamers are all avenues we should explore a lot further. However, whenever the time comes, we procrastinate or file it away in the extremely low priority list. Expanding the team to include a community/marketing manager could also be worth considering. Now, marketing might sound a bit boring or uncreative when in fact we've discovered that it can be an extremely enjoyable part of the game dev journey. What ingenious things can you say or do to get people to listen and actually give your work a chance? Amazing games might sell themselves, but that's a very risky bet. For example, The Dreadful Whispers, my first Steam release, sold a lot better than Dashing Fire, which launched on Steam a year later, despite the second game being better in my opinion, which shows that quality does not necessarily translate into more sales. And all this brings us to launch, the release of your game, and hopefully a time to celebrate and take a break after hard, satisfying work. Olobolo is now available on Steam, and we hope you have a great time playing this alone, but preferably with friends and family, which is where the game shines most. We're so excited to hear what you think, so please leave a Steam review and join the Blackthornprod Discord server to talk with me and my brother directly over there. Thanks a ton for watching, guys. Cheers.